Chairman. And thank you to all of our witnesses. I very much appreciate your holding this very important hearing. It is very troubling when you look at the nation's report card, and also, as some of you have pointed out, to realize that the decline in test scores started before the pandemic and has continued after the pandemic. The reason I emphasize that point is oftentimes we hear that it's all due to COVID. And clearly it's not. It's far more complex and troubling than that. I'm especially alarmed by the decline in scores in my home state of Maine, despite the very dedicated teachers and other educators that we're fortunate to have. There was a time when Maine was justifiably proud to be at the top of the ratings. We were consistently in the top 5. And I remember there was a New York Times piece in 1997 that noted that Maine was one of the states that performed best on the test. And in 2011, Maine's 4th graders still scored among the top 5 in the country. But then we see this dramatic change, and the data show that Maine's 4th graders their scores have plummeted. 8th grade also not good, and this started happening around 2022. And the most recent high school rankings from the U.S. News and World Report rank Maine's high schools as dead last. That was shocking to me, especially since I know how many good teachers we are fortunate to have. So I listened carefully to each of you as you identified certain factors. My question to each of you is, do you have any insights on what's going on in my state? My second question, and it'll be my last one, is I've heard cell phones mentioned, mental health crisis and student disengagement, that we need incentive-based pay for teachers, more teacher development, a focus on chronic absenteeism, and that we need to honor our teachers and principals. So I'm interested in 2 things. One, do you know what's going on in the state of Maine, that we've gone from the top 5 to the bottom 5? And 2, of the lists that I just read you, are there certain solutions that you think we should pursue? Dr. Hanishek.
Well, I would quickly answer to the first question, a pervasive problem, and that is we don't have any incentives to have higher achievement in our schools. And that is across the board. We have the example of Odessa, Texas, that we heard about this morning. We have the local example of Washington, D.C., and we have the example of Dallas, Texas, where in fact they have changed the way they reward teachers, they evaluate, reward teachers, reward the effective teachers very highly, and yet these examples that are well known around the nation are not picked up by other school districts. There are 13,500 school districts, of which a handful have followed the exact examples here. And so if we don't, in fact, reward achievement and incentivize achievement, I think we're in trouble. And that's a major change that I think we have to make.
Thank you. Dr. West.
Thank you, Senator Collins. One observation I would make is that you're not alone in the Northeast in experiencing especially large declines in NAEP performance. We see the same pattern in Vermont. I see Senator Sanders nodding, as well as in my home state of Massachusetts, where I serve on the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. We remain at the top of the chart, but other places are catching up rapidly in relative terms. And I am not expert in what's gone on in Maine in particular, but elsewhere in Massachusetts, I think there has been a softening or a backing away from the accountability policies that drove improvement in the 1990s and 2000s. And I think that's very much consistent with Dr. Hanishek's emphasis on incentives. The other thing I think it's important to keep in mind is that assessments like NAEP tell us about school quality, but they're also influenced by what's going on outside of schools in the way Senator Sanders talked about at the start. And so we should think of them as capturing not just what's happening in schools, but in the economy, in society generally. And as you look for explanations, you need to think about both of those factors.
Thank you. I know I'm out of time, so I'll ask the other three witnesses to respond for the record. Thank you.